Hello, this is the Fifth Star Podcast. I'm Jaimie.
And I'm Albert.
And together we are trying to find a 5-star rated movie. And when we find a 5-star movie that we both agree is worthy of those 5 stars, this podcast will be over. So we thought it would be fun to talk about how we rate movies.
This is our personal rating, and we both kind of approach it a little differently. We are not saying that you have to rate movies this way.
Not at all.
Yeah, because
But it's fun to think about how you would rate different or similarly to us.
Yep. And so here on the Fifth Star Podcast, we go by a 5-star scale and in half-star increments. And we do that because we both are very active on Letterboxd. So for me, I start with 3 as my average. So out of 5 stars, when I start to watch a movie, generally I'm starting at a 3 because I don't really feel any which way about the movie at that point. And so a 3 for me means that the movie I thought was average, or I was just kind of mixed.
Right.
I didn't really have any strong feelings positively or negatively. So that's my midpoint. And then my half-star above and below, so 3.5 is I thought it was above average or a pretty good movie.
Cool.
And half-star below, I would say is a 2.5 is below average, or I kind of just didn't like it. Nothing like I really hated it or anything, but just there are certain things I didn't really like about it. 1 half-star above that and below, at 4 stars, I thought the movie was very good. And then at 2 stars, I think the movie's bad. And then
which is that's his low. That's your lowest.
Yeah, I
right,
think
basically?
most movies will probably be not fall below a 2 for me.
Yeah.
For you to go below a 2, it has to be pretty terrible. And so for me, at 1.5, that means it's terrible.
Wow.
And then at 4.5, it means it's great.
Yeah.
And then for me, a 5-star is an all-time favorite movie.
Nice.
And then at 1 star is an all-time worst movie. So these are very rare, kind of by definition. Like a 5-star is the kind of movie that I watch and I'm going to remember for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Just being like, oh my gosh, that hit me so personally, or, whatever. And the kind of difference between a 4.5 and a 5 for me is very personal. Like most 4.5 movies could be 5s. They're great, fantastic movies. But 5 is just something that usually is something really personal that connects with me.
Extra sauce.
Yeah, that really kind of takes it to that level. But even 1.0s are very rare too. I mean,
Do you have an example?
I have 7, a movie called Jerry by Gus Van Sant, and stars Casey Affleck and Matt Damon. And literally the whole movie is them just walking in a desert for the whole movie.
Oh no. And that was a 1.
And the fact that I remember that as I hate this movie, those are the kind of movies for me that are 1s. Now, I don't have a half.
Right.
And I don't do anything below that because I think that from the middle, it should be equally weighted on both sides.
And so if 3 is your middle, then you can't have a half.
Yes. Now, that's the other thing I wanted to just talk about, which is how do you calibrate all these different sites, right? Between IMDb and Letterboxd, is my giving something a 4.0 accurate compared to an IMDb rating? And to me, it really comes down to the average. What is your middle in your scoring? Because everyone pretty much has the same kind of categories up above average and below average, but I think different people have different middles. So I think some people put their middle at 3.5 out of 5 or 2.5. Numerically, 2.5 makes sense. But I think that it should be at a 3 because when you look at the different rating systems, I'm going to just go through them really quick. So Metacritic, I don't really use it, but the difference between a yellow score, which is the average score, and when it turns green, a favorable score, is at the 6 out of 10 or 60 mark. Also, Rotten Tomatoes. The difference between fresh rating and a rotten rating is when you have 60% of ratings that are favorable.
Yeah.
With Popcorn Meter, a similar thing, 60%, or when it's at 3.5 out of 5, that's when it's considered a favorable review. Letterboxd and IMDb, I've watched movies my whole life, and oftentimes, pretty much any movie I watch, I'll go and see what it was on IMDb or Letterboxd, right? And pretty much like any movie that's like a 6 out of 10 on IMDb, I feel like is usually just like a very average movie. When a movie has a like average rating of 7 or in the sevens, like I think that's like a pretty decent movie. But when you get to 8, that's when you get to like the really great movies, right? So it's really hard for a movie to get like 8.0 or above. And I think similarly with Letterboxd, like at 4 out of 5, like that's a really great movie, right? For an average rating to be that high. Whereas like a 3 to 3.5 is pretty average. But if you're below a 3, like a 2.8, like that's a pretty bad rating on Letterboxd, I think.
Yeah.
So I think a 2.5 is actually really low when you look at all these different rating systems.
Yeah.
That I don't think that's a good middle. I think the 3 should be an average. So I think, you know, before you go into your scale, I think we agree on this, right?
I have some halves.
Okay, but is your middle a 3?
Yeah, my middle is still a 3.
Okay, so I think this is why it's helpful, because like when we give our ratings on the show, like we generally pretty much agree with what a 3.5 means, right, for us.
Yeah,
but,
I would say so.
Yeah. So do you want to tell us how you think about your rating system?
Yes. So I made a little presentation because it helps me remember, or I guess keep all my thoughts in order here. I rate based off of 3 main factors. We have enjoyability is number 1, quality number 2, and 3 is rewatchability. And those are in order. So primarily with enjoyability, that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be like a happy movie. It just has to have like a satisfying ending, like good writing and good character and good plot. You know, that's what makes it enjoyable. And then the quality is really more based on the practical aspects of the filmmaking. So if I'm wowed by the cinematography or even the production design, but then that also includes like writing and acting and like what deserves an Oscar. And then we have rewatchability. So if a movie to me is rewatchable, yeah, it's the lowest on my tiers, but it can be a huge distinction in terms of like a 4.5 versus a 5 for me. Because if it's rewatchable, I mean, for example, these 3 movies back here, I find to be incredibly rewatchable movies. I've probably seen each one of these like at least 5, maybe 6 times. So, Incredibles maybe more.
Yeah, me too. So Empire Strikes Back, Dark Knight, and Incredibles are the 3 of the movies that so far before we started the podcast, we agreed we both gave 5 stars. So that's this fourth one, the blank that we're looking for.
This is the one we were trying to find.
Yeah. So do all of your 5-star movies have to be incredibly rewatchable?
I kind of think so, yes. I think maybe not incredibly rewatchable, but they need to have rewatchability.
Okay.
If I can only watch it one time and feel satisfied, then I feel like that doesn't make it as good. All right, so my lowest half star, which I only have like maybe 5, but these are terrible movies. Wish they hadn't been made. Truly a waste of time. And the example I pulled was the last Airbender movie. Have you seen it?
I've not seen it, no.
M. Night Shyamalan's probably worst movie ever.
I think that's saying something. Because I think that's the only one of his I have not seen so far.
Oh boy. Yeah, it's pretty terrible. Just in all categories. All right, 1 star. I probably hated it. Or it was poorly made, or it had potential but miserably failed to attain it. And the example I pulled was Morbius. Have you seen that one?
Yes.
It was rough.
I actually would give it more than a 1, but...
Really? Oh. I absolutely hated like the 3rd act. I hated it.
It was not good though. I agree.
All right. 1.5. Cringy or hard to watch. Had maybe 1 redeeming quality, but I will not watch this again. Unless it's for a good time or like to make fun of it. And the example I pulled was Insurgent, which is the sequel to the Divergent movie. They were really bad movies. And the books weren't that great either, but yeah, anyway. 2 stars. Okay, this is where it gets dicey, okay? This, and the reason I pulled 2 examples here. I either was not the target audience, so that would be Snowpiercer, or the movie was below average in terms of like the overall quality, enjoyability, rewatchability. And so I chose Thor for that one because honestly, It's probably one of my least favorite Marvel movies, at least in the pre-Endgame saga.
Yeah, I think most people are probably on board with you with the original Thor.
I know nobody agrees with me on Snowpiercer.
Yeah, I would give Snowpiercer probably a 4, maybe.
Snowpiercer, quality off the charts, I would say. However, enjoyability, so low for me.
For you.
So low for me because it was just too visceral and dark and difficult to swallow. Rewatchability is also at the bottom. So the only thing that offsets this is the quality. So that's why it's not lower than 2 for me.
Okay.
Yeah. So that kind of gives you insight. 2.5. I didn't really like this, but something about it might be deserving of a rewatch. And so for that, it's usually comedies that are like 2.5s for me. Either comedies or maybe action movies. 21 Jump Street, it just wasn't my sense of humor. And if it's not your sense of humor, you're just not going to like it.
Yeah.
Like, if
Comedy's
it is your
very
sense of humor,
subjective.
it could be way above average, right? But it's so subjective. So yeah, a lot of my 2.5s are comedies that I just didn't like. Sorry if you love that movie. 3 stars. Same as you. Average movie. Entertaining, but not really a standout. Didn't really, excite me that much. I could rewatch it, maybe, especially if I'm feeling kind of glum or if it's a Christmas movie like Spirited. I did really enjoy Spirited, but I don't think it's I don't know. I didn't think it was deserving of more than a 3 story wise. But anyway, still a very fun movie. 3.5. So yes, above average. Something happened in it that set it apart from being a little more than an average movie.
Yeah.
So, and it also could be worth a rewatch. So I chose Promising Young Woman. That was not quite a 4 for me, but it was better than an average for sure. I'm excited because the director who directed this, Emerald Fennell, she's doing the new Wuthering Heights movie.
Oh, okay.
And I'm kind of excited about it. 4. This is like a great movie. This was good quality. This is enjoyable. This is worth a rewatch. Honestly, 4 stars. You're probably in my favorites. So Little Women is my example here. Really loved that movie. But there were a couple things that like weren't perfect about it. So that's why it wasn't a 4.5 or a 5. There were just tiny things that maybe bothered me.
And that could be like plot, character, anything kind of
Could
like
be
that.
anything, really.
Yeah.
For Little Women in particular, I wasn't a fan of Florence Pugh playing the young Amy because she's supposed to be like 11 or 12. And Florence Pugh, I'm sorry, she's like at least 18 the whole time.
And then she's even playing the flashback version too.
Yeah,
And,
and I couldn't.
Oh, that doesn't really work.
She was great
She
as
was,
older
yeah.
Amy, but as younger Amy, I was like, this is awkward and weird because I'm like, I know you're not 12.
Yeah, I get that.
So that took me out of it a little bit, but I still really love the movie. It's really good. 4.5.
Ooh.
Almost perfect. Probably a favorite. Scott Pilgrim is definitely a favorite.
I'm surprised that's not a 5.0 for you.
And then same thing as you though. There needs to be one thing to kind of tip it over the edge. Like a personal thing, like a personal connection to make it a 5. Because even though I love Scott Pilgrim and have seen it so many times, it's not really like hitting that spot, for it to be a 5 for me. And so that brings us to 5. Basically, it's a perfect movie. Impacted me, made me think about my life differently. Great quality, timeless. And that would be Schindler's List. Schindler's List is my number 1 movie, which is a very sad movie, but it's so good. And every time I watch it, I feel horrible, but I also get something new from it and can't find a flaw in it. So I just wanted to give a little shout out to the heart on Letterboxd. So I use the heart. Albert does not.
I do not.
But the reason I like to use the heart is because it's kind of like a bonus point. Like I could have a very average movie and still give it a heart because I don't know. I think it was cute enough that I like maybe want to watch it again, but I don't think it's worthy of more than whatever score I gave it.
Mm-hmm.
So these are just some examples at the bottom here. Storks, I think I gave 3, maybe 3.5, but that movie is just so funny. But I just don't feel like I can give it more than that score. So it gets a heart. Does that kind of make sense?
So the question I have, because I don't use the heart for a reason, but can you give a movie a 2.0 and give it a heart?
That's a good question because cult movies, sometimes
Like
I will
cult
do
classics
that.
and stuff?
Yeah. I think Star Wars Episode 2 is probably the dumbest. Or no, actually the new ones are pretty dumb. But it's such a silly movie. And it's probably a 2. But it's so much fun to rewatch that I probably gave it a heart.
Okay. So I pretty much, for me, hearts are anything that are 4.0 and above. It's automatically a heart. But I don't understand giving a heart to a movie that you rate like a 2.0. And I think this gets to what is a rating system signifying, right? Or communicating. And I think there's a lot of, I don't know, kind of a debate. Like some people, it's like, this is what I determine as an objective quality of this movie. But for me, I'm a strong believer in your rating system should be pretty much 100% subjective. Because
I agree.
Yeah, because like of your 3 categories of tiers, like I find that very helpful. But to me, it's really just the first one, enjoyability, and that's really it. But that can be for a lot of different reasons. Like, yes, I like certain genres. I tend to like certain genres, but even like horror movies, like I've watched, Rosemary's Baby or Exorcist, or even recently The Substance, and I do not like horror films at all. But they were still so good and so well done that I still ended up getting some enjoyment out of it. So I still end up rating it like a 3.5, 4, something like that. But if I think a movie like doesn't work, then I'm gonna give it a low score, and therefore I can't give it a heart. So
I think it's because I try to rate quality.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's as important for you, at least when you were describing how you rate. I didn't really hear you mention quality.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I will give you points if it is, artistic or whatever. Like Banshees of Inisherin. I didn't really like that movie, but I think I gave it 3.5. And I was kind of like, this movie I'll never watch again. But it's definitely not an average movie because the quality is higher.
Whereas I think for me, I love that movie, or I really liked it. I gave it a 4.0. Watching movies and movies themselves are an art form, right? How do you look at the Mona Lisa and then go, okay, I'm just going to give this a 5.0 because it's the Mona Lisa, Like if I've seen the Mona Lisa in person in the Louvre, and
it's tiny.
Yeah, and I was underwhelmed, Now, obviously, if I study it more and all this kind of stuff and all the techniques and the history, and I become like a art professor, then I might enjoy it more as I'm looking at it. But kind of devoid of that, like if I don't really enjoy it, like there's no point. It's not really helpful, I find, when you kind of give a movie like a 5.0 or 4.5 just because it's quote unquote a great movie. Like a great example is like Citizen Kane.
But if you don't enjoy it at all,
yeah, like
I agree. You shouldn't rate it that high if you didn't enjoy it.
Because, I think if a movie is not enjoyable, even if it has good quality, that's because there are other things about the movie that are not good.
Right.
Usually the writing or the plot or the characters or something else is wrong in the movie. And so I think for me, I'm always just trying to see how much do I enjoy this movie? How much am I into it? How much is it like engaging me, or am I getting bored? Like for me, a movie that bores me is like, that's like the cardinal sin,
Yeah.
And it does, but the thing is that it's not that I need action to keep me engaged.
Yeah.
I could have a very high action movie like The Beekeeper and just be so bored from it because it's so dumb, right? So it really is like all the different pieces of a movie and the aspects of filmmaking. If they're done well, I'm a believer that most people it's gonna really be enjoyable for most people.
Yeah.
Now, taste does factor in. I totally agree with that. I think a movie rating should be purely subjective. Now, when I do like or dislike a movie, I do try to think about why. What is it about this objective movie objectively about the art form that I thought worked or didn't work? And that's where I try to look at the objective stuff secondarily to make sense of my subjective experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and let me clarify too. When I say quality, I'm also looking at my subjective point of view. I'm not just trying to say, oh, this is what the critics say. I'm trying to be like, oh, I think it was beautifully shot.
Oh, like how
I
you
think
perceive
the acting
quality.
was phenomenal. Yeah.
That's helpful.
It's definitely not just about the critics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, this is just my philosophy, and I'm not trying to push this on you or anyone else, but I just think a lot of times there's this kind of pressure to be like, oh, this movie's considered amazing, you know? But what do I want my rating system to be when someone goes to my letterbox, right? I want them to know like what movies I just loved. And I want to remember what movies I loved or how much I liked a movie. Not like, I don't think someone's 5-star movies should be like the AFI 100 movies of all time. I don't think that's the goal, right? Of what we're trying to do.
It has to touch you personally.
Yeah. Now I do think great movies tend to generally the likelihood that you will enjoy it are probably higher because it's been time tested and lots of people have enjoyed it.
Like Schindler's List or
Yeah.
Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, exactly. Like those movies are great. I agree. Most people agree, right? So I kind of approach those all-time great movies as here's a list of movies that I can go through that's curated for me.
Yeah.
Where I'm more likely to find my next 5-star movie. Because at the end of the day, that's what I want. I
Right.
just want to find a movie that just takes me to that place of pure bliss and joy.
Yeah.
And that's what a 5-star movie gives me. There are lots of hits and misses, right? And it's so subjective, like your demographic, your upbringing, you know, your country, your language, like so many different factors that, you know, it's impossible to have one movie that everyone loves equally.
Yeah.
So
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's the fun of the discussion. That's the fun of like us kind of
It's the fun of watching movies.
yeah, watching movies and sharing our different takes on it, and, you know, whether we agree or disagree.
So let's use an example like Mean Girls.
The original or the
original.
the remake musical?
I think that movie is really enjoyable. So it's high on that scale.
Yeah.
Quality, it's good, but it's not like blow your mind good.
I disagree.
Right? For me.
Tina Fey's writing. It's
and then I
amazing.
think the last one, rewatchability,
Oh,
it's very high.
Insanely high. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it's kind of like ding ding
Okay.
a little
and
bit.
that's why
so that's
it doesn't
why
get
it's
a
like
5?
I think it's a 4 or something for me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so that's why it doesn't get a 5 is
Okay.
because, and also my enjoyability is kind of depends.
Yeah.
Kind of depends on where I'm at.
So for me, rewatchability is like almost a non-factor because I rarely rewatch a movie.
I know.
If I have 2 hours to watch a movie, I will almost always watch a movie I haven't seen that I want to check off the watch list rather than rewatch a movie I've already seen.
I love it though. It's so comforting
Yeah.
to watch a movie that you
But
love.
Mean Girls, I think I've seen that movie like at least 7, maybe 10 times now. I've even watched the remake musical. So like
Is that the only movie that you've like watched that many times?
I think it might be.
Wow.
Now, I mean, Terminator 2, I've also seen just so many times. There are movies I've seen, like Incredibles, and that's just because it's on, and then once it starts playing, like I can't not continue watching because it's so good. But the enjoyability is so high. The writing is superb by Tina Fey. The comedy, the everything, you know. But even Lindsay Lohan is amazing. And oh my gosh, Rachel McAdams, she's fantastic. She's one of the greatest villains of all time, right? So yeah, I think that movie is a easy 5-star for me. I mean, it's like top 20, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. He's showing his true colors now.
But I also try to be as diverse as possible. So between old and new movies, you know, black and white, silent, whatever, to modern, different countries, not just foreign versus American, but like as many different countries as I kind of can expose myself to. I'm also like, the way I use Letterboxd or even just friends recommending movies is if anyone says they like the movie, I will add it to my watch list.
Right.
Because, or anyone.
And you'll actually follow through. Yeah.
Yeah, at some point I'll get around to watching it because, you know, you just, there's so, I think sadly most movies end up being a 3, you know, kind of
Yeah.
by definition. Like most movies are kind of average and forgettable, but I don't want that to be the case. Like I want every movie to be like something that I'm super into and blown away. But after watching so many movies, it becomes harder and harder to find those, right? Like once you go through all the greatest movies of whatever every time, all time by genre and all this stuff, you kind of start, it gets harder to find those movies. And so I kind of don't want to like miss out on a surprise movie that I otherwise would have loved, that I never would have thought. Like Mean Girls, when I turned it on, I never would have thought it would be the kind of movie that I would be into, right?
Still can't believe that you don't rewatch good movies though. Like that is so crazy to me because I find so much out of rewatching each movie that's like a 5-star or a 4.5 even.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I'm gleaning something new each time I watch it because maybe I'm like in a different point in my life, or maybe I don't know. I'm a little bit smarter, but
no, the same things happen to me. Yeah, I agree with you.
And it's like
ratings have changed,
and I think it's cool too because you end up appreciating so much of the movie that you couldn't appreciate on the first watch.
So
unless it's a bad movie, then you're not going to rewatch it, and that's a good sign that it's not a good movie.
Yeah. So I think I'm afraid. That I'll watch it and it won't be as amazing.
It'll be
as
a
the
lower
first time.
score.
Yeah.
I doubt it.
Like, so my favorite movie of all time is Memento, number 1, right?
And majority of people agree that that's a fantastic movie.
I mean, people do agree, but I don't think anyone I've met has said that's their favorite movie of all time. But the reason why that is for me is because when I watched that movie in high school, I just remember being like, what is happening? Like, how are you allowed to tell a story like this? Like front and back meeting in the middle. Like, I was just like, what is that? My mind was blown away. And, you know, I didn't know Christopher Nolan at the time. Like, he had only done The Following. He was like a no-name guy, right? Just came out of nowhere, this movie. Was so blown away. It was like throughout the 90s independent film like kind of era, and I feel pretty confident if I watch that movie again, it's not gonna hit me as make that same kind of impression because I kind of know what to expect.
Then it would be a lower rating.
But yeah,
because I think
you think it has to hold up.
I think it has to hold up because I recently rewatched Prince of Egypt and realized, wow, this movie's amazing. It's so
still
good.
A 5.
It's still a 5. Like there are so many movies that are 5s for me that I don't think they've ever gone down. But
I mean, because I guess you have the nostalgia kind of still factoring in.
You're
kind of remembering. Yeah,
in that place of remembering how you felt the first time you watched it.
Yeah. This is super bougie and annoying, and I'm not like this at all. But it kind of is like wine. Like when you have when you have a certain vintage from a certain year, you drink it a certain number of years after it's been, you know, come out that year. Every year's harvest is a little different. Like it's this kind of encapsulated experience that you can't ever really get back again.
Yeah.
But when you have it, you know, that wine again, it's not the exact same thing because it's aged or it
might be better.
It's from a different year. It could be better. That's true, but it can remind you of what that experience was like back then, like that time capsule. I mean, so I have like, I think 53 5-star movies out of 2,900.
And I have 11.
Yeah, but I have more movies logged, right? So I think our percentage is actually very similar.
Okay.
I looked at how many you had versus how many you watched, and I have 1.8% of my movies are 5 stars, and you have 1.2%. So it's pretty close.
Wow.
And so
it's a whole 0.5 off there.
But yeah, I think there's just something about some movies I don't really want to. I would be more heartbroken if I watched it again and I was like, oh, this movie was actually really bad. Like,
but then you don't have to be embarrassed that you said that was your favorite movie.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm not embarrassed to say Memento's my favorite.
That movie was milk, not wine.
Yeah, because recently that happened where I watched The Fifth Element. And
but at least that wasn't a 5 for you.
It used to be, I think, a 5 or 4.5.
No, it was.
It was a 4.5.
4.
Was it?
I think it was a 4.
I think it was a 4.5. But then I rewatched it.
Does not age well.
And it was like a 2. I was like, oh my gosh, what is
that
this
movie is milk.
Yeah.
Sorry if you like that movie.
But it was so great when it came out, and the context matters.
Yeah.
And so that's another hard thing is, I watched Citizen Kane, and look, I understand. I read up on it, studied the filmmaking techniques and how influential it was and all this kind of stuff, and understand it's like a satire about Hearst, and so I kind of understand as much as I can, but like I still am just not that into that movie. Like it just doesn't really grab me. The first time I watched it, I give it a 3. And then I watched Mank, which is kind of like a retelling of the backstory of the writer, and then that's from recently. And then I rewatched Citizen Kane, and it helped me appreciate it a little more. So on the second watch, I give it a 3.5. But I think the unfortunate thing is that I just didn't watch it when it first came out. And I didn't have the context of being in that time of when that movie came out and how hard it hit, how controversial it might have been, and how revolutionary it might have been at the time, right?
Maybe, but I really liked it, and I obviously wasn't born in that time.
Yeah.
So I think it does have to hit like a personal chord, too.
Yeah, I guess so. Like that's why when I kind of went through a lot of the really old like silent film into the 20s, 30s, that era, I actually took a break from new movies for like a few months, and I watched those movies sequentially, chronologically, so that I could try to stay in that time frame. And it kind of helped, where when I would see something in a movie and be like, wow, that really stands out, because all the movies for the last 10, 15 years before that weren't able to do that kind of thing, you know? That context does really matter. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not going to give a movie a great high movie rating just because everyone says it's amazing, if I didn't really enjoy it. Because then
I did that with Goodfellas.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Which I think is the way it should be.
So all in all, what we're getting here is that rate subjectively.
Yeah.
And don't
be afraid.
Don't enforce your opinions on others.
Well,
Never mind. Albert thinks we should enforce our opinions on others.
No. I think
Jaimie, change your mind.
Yeah.
Change your mind.
Well, we do that sometimes because we love movies and we are passionate about it, and we want people to
understand where we're coming from, but ultimately
I think that's part of the fun. It's
part of the fun, but ultimately, I don't think we should hold our own standards over everyone else.
Yeah, I agree with that. Movies mean different things to different people, and people have different tastes, and that stuff really matters. And so, yeah, I think being respectful is super important, obviously. I do think people should not feel pressure, because sometimes you see people post a review on Letterboxd or wherever, and they kind of give a great all-time movie a low rating, and then people are just like, oh, this person has no idea what they're talking about, blah blah blah, and all that stuff. And like, come on now, like if it didn't work for somebody, it didn't work for them. Like it's and
I was gonna say too, like if I trash talked anybody's favorite movie today, I apologize. It just didn't hit right for me, I guess.
Yeah, so
missed the mark.
But, hopefully you guys enjoy watching our podcast and listening. Share your thoughts on how you think about ratings, what your kind of numbers mean on a 5-star scale. Yeah,
and if you want to hear more of our movie reviews, you can follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Letterboxd, Apple Podcasts, and join us on this ride to find a 5-star movie.
Yeah, so we try to release a new episode every week, and so follow us so you don't miss an episode, and share with your friends, and yeah, join us next week as we continue our quest for the 5th star.